no court files were public, no medical confirmations were made public, and no records ever came to light. However, the vocabulary had changed, and that in and of itself was sufficient to influence the public's opinion. Fans who had previously supported Tamar started to ask hesitant, rather than accusing questions. Why was the plot still developing? Why were individuals all of a sudden bringing up legal action? And why did the story seem to be progressing without anyone explaining, guiding it? At the same time, Mendeecees' name became inextricably linked to the conversation, not because he made a statement or said anything, but because the internet concluded that his quiet had significance. Some contended that the rumors would have been instantly put to rest if nothing had transpired, while others countered that silence is a frequent course of action when if nothing is officially filed. There may still be issues. The issue was that no one could verify either side, which led to a void that was filled with conjecture. Blog entries started to suggest that a test result had supposedly been shared behind closed doors, not formally, not publicly, but according to sources. That phrase kept coming up, strong enough to spark discussion but ambiguous enough to shield the publisher. When the word leak entered the conversation, everything changed because a leak implies intention. Even if no evidence ever came to light, the concept alone was sufficient to advance the story. Because it suggests that someone wanted knowledge to be revealed and that there was anything to conceal. A new stage, where fans began making connections between seemingly unrelated incidents and rewatching old interviews with skepticism. The narrative had officially escaped. And social media posts from weeks prior were suddenly regarded as proof, including the timing of who posted what and when. Control. The public's sharply varied views, with some viewers claiming Tamar was being unfairly singled out and that rumors had gone well beyond what she had meant, intensified the problem. There were those who concentrated on Mendeecees, while others thought that the absence of outright denial showed there was more going on behind the scenes than anyone wanted to acknowledge. They wondered why his name kept coming up in relation to allegations he hadn't addressed, whether his silence was a personal or legal strategy, and above all, why, if the rumors were genuinely unfounded, he hadn't officially rejected any involvement. Once more, there were no answers, just more conjecture. As time went on, the narrative's focus switched from what actually happened to it. At that, the topic of discussion shifted from sympathy and confusion to power, image, and who would suffer the most in a particular direction. At that point, the concept of judicial drama truly gained traction, not because of verified court proceedings, but rather because the narrative itself began acting like one, and language became cautious. Because no one was speaking, people started to infer that attorneys were involved. Posts became calculating. Statements, when they occurred at all, felt measured. Online conversations became mocking. That presumption alone held weight. Commenters discussed timelines, intentions, and believability as if they were rooms. Each had a hypothesis and thought their version made the greatest sense. Tamar didn't say much during it all, and it didn't stop the storm. It got more intense. Supporters claimed she had every right to remain silent, that she owed no one an explanation, and that the internet had already determined her participation without any proof. On the other hand, detractors contended that once the tale was made public, clarissos became a duty, and that allowing rumors to go unchecked would only worsen the situation for all parties. Mendeecees remained mute, but that silence turned into the loudest part of the narrative because the public fills in the blanks. When two people are connected to an issue but neither speaks, because generosity seldom fills such gaps. By this time, the story had expanded well beyond its initial parameters. It was no longer about a single night. People started questioning questions about perception, control, and the fear of what might come up next, rather than the rumors themselves. Queries that were entirely intentional and had nothing to do with facts. Why now? Why this particular order of events? In the realm of celebrity, who stands to gain from the confusion? This is probably the most perilous issue of all. Why let the story spiral instead of preventing it? Confusion is currency in narratives. It generates opinions and stimulates interaction, keeps names in the spotlight, and once it gets going, it's difficult to stop. At this point, even people who didn't think the allegations were true acknowledged one thing. The story had been given the opportunity to develop fangs, whether through timing, quiet, or miscommunication. And once it had teeth, it began to bite everyone involved. Blogs became more theatrical, commentators were bolder, and fans became agitated. What started out as a discussion about claims had evolved into a full-fledged media storm as each new post attempted to surpass the previous one, moving the narrative further from reality and closer to spectacle. There was only one thing that was certain. Nobody, not even Tamer Mendeecees, or the people who wrote the headlines, seemed to be able or willing to stop it. The narrative was no longer about truth. Instead, it was about momentum, which seldom ends once it takes control. By this point, the tale had all hands of those concerned. And what had internet rumors had evolved into something more than a declaration. Heavier. Something that seemed to be monitored, metered, and discreetly controlled behind closed doors. The lack of clarity did not ease the tension. Since people were now questioning why no one was putting an end to the rumors rather than just what had happened. Every hour that went by without a response gave the rumors more weight. Blogs kept phrasing things carefully. Sources assert that reports claim, but the repetition produced its own truth. The story had momentum. And momentum doesn't wait for evidence. Therefore, it didn't matter if nothing was verified. It continued to be at the heart of it all. If some fans thought she was protecting herself since whatever she said could be misconstrued, others believed that her silence was calculated since it was safer to let the tale unfold naturally than to intervene. But the more she remained, more people made assumptions, started analyzing her previous interviews once more, focusing on what she didn't say rather than what she said. Why had some details been brought up but not clarified? Why did the narrative end where it did? Why did it seem like there was no conclusion? At the same time, focus gradually switched to Mendeecees, not because of anything he had done in public, but because his name just kept coming up. Even in pieces that purport to be about Tamer, he was brought up. In the realm of internet narratives, perception can be shaped by repetition. Some viewers began to suspect that behind the scenes legal counsel had been provided, while others thought the silence indicated private conversations. Nothing was proved, but some even argued that both parties were waiting for the appropriate time to someone else to speak. What was evident was the shift in sentiment on social media. Support gave way to cynicism, and early sympathy started to break apart. The word appear more frequently is questioned. The place of empathy and the audience gradually stopped asking what had happened and questioning who was in charge of the narrative. It didn't appear in reports or official pronouncements, but rather captions, murmurs, and speculative headlines. The public took the suggestions seriously. No court files had been made. The notion of court involvement implied seriousness. Even if there was no evidence that it had, it suggested that something had and once that notion gained tone of the topic changed once more. Individuals were now waiting rather than merely observing. With each day that went by, the strain increased as they waited for confirmation, denial, or one side to blink. Some supporters demanded, others contended that once a tale became public, it ceases to be private. And they questioned whether it was fair to let rumors get out of control. Tomorrow deserved privacy, they said, because she had already endured enough. Involved particularly when goals and reputations were at risk. On the other hand, other people thought the whole rolled and that the sided rather than a sign of confusion, that the rumors were instruments rather than coincidences. The narrative was being allowed to develop because it helped the person in question. Though there was no consensus, the idea gradually gained traction as people began to frame the issue like a chessboard. with each move and pause thoughtful. They interpreted timing, wording, who posted and who didn't, and even the absence of denial as a type of declaration. And through it all, Mendeecees nothing. No explanation, no denial. No acknowledgement, gone a life of its own. Gone a life of its own. Though once the headlines began to circulate, instead of slowing down, the internet served same queries everywhere. What actually trending? What's being not happened, or what bloggers suggest? Because all of a sudden, the story was more than just a stressful evening or a perplexing interview. It had changed into something heavier and darker, something that's out of control. According to several websites' reports, fresh allegations started to appear practically overnight. Of medical discussions discuss test findings. Legal documents are rumored to be surreptitiously circulating. None of it was formally verified. Not one of it is supported by record. However, there is enough gossip to drive supporters crazy. The line that started it all came next. Physicians have refuted the allegations. That one sentence went viral. Credulous comments. The same question began to be posed by fans in various ways. If doctors denied it, did it, and why now? More significantly, what was altered following that evening with Mendeecees? Overnight, social media some hurried to stand up for Tamar, claiming that she was being unfairly singled out. Others started timing the stillness and the sudden emergence of purported legal discourse. At the same time, a new story started to take shape. One thing implied that this was about control, and who was a temp story rather than just rumors. The reason it was considerably more explosive was what was left unsaid. There are no official records, no court papers that have been verified, no public medical statements, just reports, sources, and mounting conjecture. Fans began scrutinizing old footage, replaying interviews, reading between lines that might or might not have existed, and analyzing body language by the hour. Every hesitation raised suspicions. Every quiet moment turned into a declaration. Suddenly, the question was not whether anything had happened, but rather why the story seemed to be changing so quickly. Was someone attempting to get ahead of it became widely known? Were discussions about the law taking doors? Or was this just another instance of rumors becoming true online before anyone could stop them? High as rumors of court involvement and the purported test report leak started to circulate. Critics sought explanations, supporters, and the conflict became so heated that even those who had remained silent were being drawn into the discussion. Because everything changes. Reputations are motivations are scrutinized. That began as it transforms into legal action moment, the possibility of litigation. Even as a rumor enters, anything far more significant. And that's when the real narrative starts. Not with what has been verified, but with what people think will happen next. It wasn't a sudden change. Began softly, only for the majority of people to hear. In the story's initial circulation, Tamar's name was all over the place. Not because she had said something novel, but rather because people started to reinterpret it already stated. Initially, sympathetic fans began to ask questions. Comment sections that offered a delayed, tentative sign of support. And in the midst of it all, one name kept coming up. Mendeecees. Men. It seemed subtle. He was not being specifically accused of anything. They had inquiries. He was there that evening, but why? Why did the narrative appear to change after that? Why were there suddenly rumors linking legal whispers to medical claims? Next, the tone shifted. Variations of the same headlines started to appear on and online blogs that certain rumors had been refuted. Some even hinted at legal action, suggested that a test report had been leaked. There were no documents displayed. There was no public confirmation of court filings. However, the wording alone was sufficient to... Supporters didn't wait for verification. They never do. Screenshots went viral. Rewatched the frame-by-frame old interviews were examined. Individuals started connections might not have all. Additionally, the greater the fear in question dominated the debate, the more it grew. Why was the story still changing if the doctors actually... At that point, Tamar's previous sentiments started to resurface as evidence that to back up their own judgments. Her past interviews were replayed with renewed vigor. Each pause was scrutinized. Every moment of feeling was reframed. According to several viewers, she appeared calculated according to some. Some people think she was misinterpreted. Others believed that something was purposefully omitted, and Mendeecees' name persisted through discussion. As stated by following stories that suggested legal talks might be taking place, and conjecture intensified. Once more, there were no official documents, no public declarations, and only repeated assertions that something was underway. That was sufficient on its own to influence the tone shifts when people think attorneys are involved. Everything seems less sentimental, more calculated, and more serious. The story gained additional urgency from the possibility that a test report had been released, even if it was only suspected. Nothing happened. Why would there be legal talk at all? Fans started to inquire. Why deny anything if nothing was wrong? And why did the tale continue to expand rather than fade if nothing was... into a heated argument, with some viewers accusing Tamar of allowing the story to get out of hand, and others vehemently defending her, claiming that she was being unfairly singled out and that rumors had taken on a life of their own. The third group questioned why Men's name continued to appear even if he had not made an official remark. Because silence in situations like this, it formed its own narrative, to some strength, to others strategy. And to the loudest voices on the internet, it appeared to be confirmation. All of Tamar and Mendeecees' interactions, both past and present, were suddenly re-examined. Old pictures, public appearances, and seemingly insignificant occurrences were now interpreted as hints. Fans conjectured about timing, intentions, regarding what might have transpired behind closed doors following, and the purported release of test results only served to stoke the flames because no one was able to confirm it. In the internet era, rumors turned into reality so fast that people talked about it as if they had seen it, even though no one could confirm it. Some bloggers even went so far as to say that legal action was unavoidable. Others asserted that the matter was already being addressed in private. Still others suggested that the truth was being withheld to prevent negative reactions. All of it was unconfirmed, but once it got going, it couldn't be stopped. Tamar's quiet during this stage just made the rumors more intense. She didn't provide an explanation, publicly confirm or refute any of the allegations, and her silence became a headline in and of itself. Mendeecees, meanwhile, didn't say anything, didn't do any interviews, anything on social media, and had two supporters. Critics saw that as deflection, while saw it as dignity. Fans who actually didn't know what to think anymore were in the middle. What had begun as worry had now become something more serious. Story that was propelled by momentum rather than facts, with each post feeding the next and each rumorous one. And as each hour went by, the story became more dramatic, with people discussing intent instead of just what had happened. Accountability about who... At that point, the discussion went too far, because when legal terms like court case, leak, and report are used in stories, the stakes shifted. More than just celebrity rumors. It seemed like something more significant was happening, something that would have actual repercussions. Even so, one fact persisted. Nothing had been died. Number records had been made public. No accusation. No medical declarations had been issued, just reports. Simply gossip. Merely a rising storm of